In Dwarfhold, you stack tokens to craft resources and make towers to protect you from attacking enemies. To decide what enemies are spawned, where, and how many, I took inspiration from the directors used in games like Risk of Rain 2 and Left 4 Dead. These directors take in information about the state of the game and use that to influence random choices that create enemies. I love the way these games are able to create a fresh experience each time you play, just by changing up the enemy types and placement. The goal for this system is to give the player a different challenge each day with an increasing amount and variety of enemies. In Dwarfhold, the director has a currency called difficulty points that it uses to spawn enemies. The longer the player has survived, the more difficulty points are generated for any given day. It's important for the points to increase each day so that the player feels a rising sense of challenge and progression no matter their skill or experience. At the end of each day, these points are spent to create clusters of enemies. First, the director checks the cost of each enemy and makes a list of all the ones that it can afford to spawn. Secondly, it randomly picks an enemy from the list. We can also set a weight to make certain enemies more or less likely. Thirdly, how many enemies to spawn is chosen. Each enemy has a minimum and maximum count that increases as days pass. This way, instead of spawning one enemy at a time, we could create a whole group that requires the player to change up their defense. Fifth, a point in a random direction from the Dwarfhold is selected and the number of copies of the enemy will be created around it. The cost of the enemy is then subtracted from the difficulty points. Steps 1 through 5 are then repeated until the director runs out of points. This makes sure each wave of enemies in Dwarfhold are different but not unfair. This system is pretty versatile and doesn't just have to be for creating enemies. We could spend difficulty points to create environmental hazards, make dwarves craft slower for the day, or give already spawned enemies special abilities. We could even use more information from the player to create more interesting moments, such as spawning less enemies if they had lost a lot of health in the last few waves and need a break. Or if they've been coasting by without difficulty, then we could check what towers they have and send enemies they aren't prepared for to keep things challenging. That's why I like the term director rather than the alternatives, because spawning enemies is what they do, but ultimately, the goal is to direct the game into interesting scenarios for the player. I'm making Dwarfhold with Johnny, and he uploaded a video about how the stacking and crafting works that you should watch. Also, wishlist Dwarfhold on Steam, and stick around for more videos about it. Please, thank you, or else.